My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be The Mammoth Cheese Video 17, The Interview Part 2. Here is the cover of the novel. James McIntyre, The Mammoth Cheese. I'm going to hold it straight here. A novel by John Passfield. Here's the summary on the back cover. With a contribution of 800 cows, the tiny village of Ingersoll, Ontario, has not only produced the world's largest block of cheese, it has also nurtured the epic poet who can rapturously sing its praises. Now, if only Queen Victoria can be persuaded to take a hearty bite and add her majestic voice to the poet's ecstatic hymns of praise, the mammoth cheese will become the edible jewel in the crown of the globe-girdling British Empire. Well, wouldn't that be nice if they can get that kind of publicity for the mammoth cheese? For the sake of brevity, I've broken the interview into 3 video readings, so this is the middle one. The interview in this reading will be from chapters 6 to 10. Now, all through the interview, the question can be asked, what's he saying and what's he thinking? And the third question would be, well, are the two the same? Is he avoiding something very important by kind of babbling away at lesser topics, I guess you might say? Well, we'll see as we read the interview. So let's go to chapter 6. What is my role? A very probing question. The most general question often generates the most detailed response. Well, everyone has a number of roles in the universe, a number of roles in time. I'm a husband. I was a father. I'm a member of a lodge. I'm a designer of furniture. I'm a salesman who explains the wonders of the showroom floor. I was an excellent father, as good as I knew how to be. I wiped tears away and soothed the nighttime fears. I'm an excellent coffin maker. I make an excellent pine box. I am an obituary writer and an undertaker, too. Moving on a page or so. Roles change, roles diverge, roles collide. I've had roles that I've yearned for and never had a sniff. I've had roles that I've attained and lost again. I've seen myself as a loose collection, a moth-eaten bag of ragtag roles. I've had roles thrust upon me and roles that I have thrust aside. I've had roles I have wrestled with in the slimiest swamps. Yes, I've assumed many roles, many roles. And what role will I be judged when I stand before God? Do we get to choose our roles? What will God do if we refuse to talk? How can we talk our way into heaven if our lips are sealed? About undertaking, I shall simply refuse to talk. There was a young boy who was dragged by a horse. An ankle caught, and the horse ran away and dragged that boy for miles. Usually you sew them up, but in his case, it was not enough to sew. Okay, that's chapter 6. Let's look at chapter 7. What's he driving at? What's bothering him? So, what are the ingredients, the checklists, the items in a recipe for an epic adventure? That's the question that I often ask of myself. What are the essential elements in such an enterprise? Is it the same as everyday life? Is it reserved for exceptional beings and exceptional times? Are these two experiences the same or different at the innermost core? It seems to me that it starts as an everyday story, an ordinary story, as it were, and then gradually there arises a philosophical quandary, a missing idea, to go on a journey in search of the special idea that is missing in the everyday life, to find that missing idea and bring it home. A journey to the ends of the earth, a journey to far-flung lands, a commitment to a mind-shaping experience, though the trek might be dangerous and far. Raging rivers, crashing rocks, pounding surf, blazing sun, ferocious cold, forbidding terrain. Never to falter, never to flag, never to fail. Find the gem, find the amethyst, find the pearl. Every epic needs a hero, a wily and courageous man, a bold adventurer who plunges into threatening seas. A spark in the mind and a glint in the eye, rippling muscles and sun-bronzed skin, a leader who leads his charges through the gates of hell. Or does it have to be a human? What is the role of the Golden Fleece? Can an epic hero be a piece of cheese? So, what do I have to work with? What information do I have? Can an epic be written that starts in Ingersoll? Group of owners pool their factories. They gather milk from 800 cows. They devise a method of making a mammoth cheese. And that is where I come in. I, the one who wields the pen. I gather the information. I turn the information into words. Am I writing my autobiography? What a strange question to ask. Do I look old to you? Do I look wise? Put it bluntly, as clear as I can, emphatically, no. I am definitely not writing my autobiography. Of my private life, I do not intend to write even one word. I print my poems in ink and on paper, not in the windows of my house. I don't invite readers to peer inside. Look at me closely. What do you say? Do I look like a chunk of mammoth cheese? I do not own a factory. I own no cows. I make no curds or whey. Readers will see my ink and my paper. That's as close as they'll get to me. My fingerprints will not appear on the page. I never write my poems about myself. I write my poems in what is called imagery. That is a language that hides the life and reveals the thought. The hero of my epic, for instance, will not be me. I am not a Greek hero reefing the sails in stormy seas. I do not scramble ashore as my ship goes down. When the hero appears in the harbor, ship lost, but the quest intact, that will not be my head, which is bobbing above the waves. So please, no questions about my life. An uncut book, a locked cupboard, a sealed cave. A beach with only one set of footprints in the sand. Yes, I have had 2 wives. Yes, I have had a son, a little boy who used to laugh and sing. But biography is out. Not a topic for this interview. And I shall never write my autobiography. Okay, on to chapter 9. What's bothering him? What's bothering him? Do I have a philosophy, you ask? Now that's a pretty big word. A philosophy of life, I presume you mean. Oh, I've perused the great philosophers. I have a gigantic book on my shelf. I flip the pages and skim my eye over the words. Hard to make head nor tail of what they say. But I've done a lot of living. I've lived 2 or 3 lives, I would say. Been a boy, been a youth, been a man. I've been married twice. I've been single in between. I've lived for myself and lived for others at different times. Been a child in a wonderful family, been an adult in 2 more. Not a care in the world at times, and at other times weighted down with care. So what do I find in the big fat book, with every wise man getting a chapter of weighty thought? Very little, I would say, to get me through the day. Not worth the candle to light up a single page in the dark. So, what's my philosophy, you ask? The one I didn't get from a book. The one I learned from the sweat of my brow and the skin of my nose. The one I acquired from the rising of the sun. The one I acquired from the sun at noon. The one I acquired from being bone tired at the end of the day. The one from seeing this town burn down. The one from watching the river rise. The one from witnessing friends and loved ones pass away. Well, the sun rises every morning, climbs as high as it can in the sky, and so should I. The sun pauses in the heavens. It takes stock at the midpoint of the day, and so should I. The sun goes down every evening, gives the best of himself each day. It seems to me that I should always do the same. What else am I working on in the meantime? Well, I don't confine myself to epics, that's for sure. In fact, the Mammoth cheese will be the first epic that I have tried. As you might expect, I often write about writers and writing. I have some poems about the English poets and some poems about the Scottish writers as well. I have poems about Canada and its people, poems about Brock's Monument, and of course Niagara Falls. But these are merely what I would call hymns of the everyday. Was Homer a god or simply a man? Was Virgil a human being? Was Milton not a regular person like you or me? Who wrote these wonderful poems? Each was a boy when he started out with a massive dream. I have a pen, I have plenty of paper and gallons of ink. My dream is to be the chronicler of this great epic journey. The humble chronicler. I need not add, and I'm sure you'll agree. The glory will be all to the cheese, none to me. The great epic, I know, will be a certainty. A certainty for sure, I know it will be. And the poem of this great event will write itself. All I have to do is to follow the progress of the adventure. The story will be the story of the Mammoth cheese. I'll simply take the events and turn them into rhyme. The cheese is fact, an enormous fact. In future course is as predictable as the rising and the setting of the sun. All I have to do is tag along and write. But the question, as I recall, was about my secondary projects, the poems that I write, as it were, on the side, the poems of limited potential for renown. Well, I have one poem, of which I am pleasantly pleased, a poem about a couple, a man and a woman, who are what we call pioneers. Two people who made a life for themselves out of what little they originally had. They carved a home out of the wilderness near Ingersoll. Their names are John and Jane Rowe. Well, that's the end of chapter 10 of the 16 chapters of interview. And that poem is in the novel about John and Jane Rowe. But I won't read it today. Is it possible that the readers of this novel might come to wonder whether the interview did take place? And some indications of the text of the novel are that it did not take place. So if the interview did take place, the question arises as to when it took place, and in particular who it is who is interviewing the main character, James McIntyre. Well, the text would indicate that the interviewer is a young reporter with whom the main character has a chat in Saratoga, New York, which takes place in chapters 4, 5, and 6 of the 16 chapters of the novel. Well, that's fine, and it does no harm if a reader of the novel assumes this to be the case and thinks no further on the topic at all. However, there are some interesting indications that perhaps the main character is fantasizing, imagining that he's being interviewed by his younger self, his own self, his younger self. The suggestion of this possibility would seem to be that the future which the main character predicts for the young reporter in detail is exactly that of the main character himself. So, I suppose the question would arise as to why the main character might create an imaginary interview between himself and a character who resembles his younger self. Just what exactly would the main character be attempting to understand in terms of his past life that he feels he has not understood completely until now? And if he does reach a new understanding of some of the events of the past, some of which have been traumatic, what might the main character James McIntyre hope to be able to do in future as a result of reviewing his thoughts and feelings of that traumatic past? It is the nature of the poetic novel that many questions are raised in the mind of the reader, and few, if any, questions are answered. And if you can appreciate the poetic novel as a genre, you'll be at home with this method of novelistic presentation. However, if you're not at home with the poetic novel, you can seek out the prose novel, in which questions which are raised in the story are, by convention, answered before the novel ends. So once again, this is my novel, James McIntyre, The Mammoth Cheese. There's more information about the novel on Amazon. There's more information on my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com. And more information, 2 books, just click on the icon and you can read them. A planning notebook and a journal. So have a look at those if you're interested. Lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.